Start this up. How you guys doing?
Good.
Doing
Let's
great.
see. Every time I got to figure out how Google works every single time. Oh, there it is. Found it. Perfect. All right. I think Justin was going to join us too. All right. Justin, you wanna talk? You wanna show some stuff before we go through the issues?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Let me just see. How do I share screen? I haven't used Hangout. Screen share. I think I found
Green
it.
button on the left.
Okay. Screen one. I want to share the other screen. Is that possible?
Should be able to.
Maybe I'll just do this here. All right. Can you see the pipeline?
Yes. Now I can.
Okay, cool. So hi, everyone. I don't know who all is on. I think there are some people who don't know me. I jump on from time to time. I'm in Europe, so this is kind of late for me. Yeah, I work for Stark & Wayne, and I've been contributing some features to Habitat in the last couple of weeks and months. Now Stark & Wayne is starting to build out some Habitat plans. And so I haven't been doing so much feature work. I've been doing more plumbing stuff for Stark & Wayne. And I just wanted to show you what I've built up to now. First, some context. I've written a tool called Delmo, which is kind of a way that I do acceptance testing of distributed systems locally. It works for containerized systems. Basically, you have a Docker Compose file. And I don't want to jump in too deep, but basically you have a spec that kind of runs some tasks against the services that are defined in the Docker Compose file. So I wrote it for testing a clustered PostgreSQL system that we have at Stark & Wayne. So this is a real-world example here. This is like a failover thing. Basically, we write a value into one node, and then we start the second node and stop the first node and assert that the value is still there. So that only works if there was really a clustered situation and the data got streamed over because we stopped the node that we wrote to. So the only way that works is if the cluster actually established itself. And it works with integration with Docker Compose. So we have Patroni 1, Patroni 2. They're the containers that form the cluster. And we have images that these containers are based off of. And this is quite a nice workflow. And since we're building out some plans at Stark & Wayne that are like kind of relatively complex systems, they're not just one service, they're kind of a collection of services. One of the things I'm doing is porting over the Shield Bosch release to a Habitat version. And Shield consists of, well, these are the jobs. So these will map roughly to services in Habitat. So I'll have a Docker Compose file probably with 5 or 6 of these and run and port the acceptance tests to run instead of in Bosch in Docker Compose. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. So that was a little bit of introduction. So what I'm looking for is a workflow that I can simply use my Delmo tool locally, and it's based off of Docker images, but we have Habitat packages. So what do I do? Well, I've created this pipeline. This is in the Habitat plans repository of Stark & Wayne. I've started some plans. It's the same folder layout as the core plans that Habitat GitHub account has. So right now there are 3, the Shield, PostgreSQL, and Docker. It's basically based off the core Docker. I just needed to add a little something. And then there's this CI folder, and the CI folder contains all the code necessary to generate this pipeline. So the pipeline, Concourse is sometimes a bit weird in how it renders. So imagine this PostgreSQL, build PostgreSQL runs into test PostgreSQL, runs into release PostgreSQL, and the other 2 don't have a test job. So this is rendered a bit weird. So ignore that for now. But basically, every plan has the build step, some potentially have a test step, and then there's the release step. So the build step, as you can see, has a bunch of inputs. Basically, my pipeline generation script reads out all of the package steps in the Habitat plan and sets the job up to trigger on any update to any of these steps in the Habitat core depot. So it's working in the method that Concourse works with an abstraction called resource, which basically is polling the depot, and any new version of any of these packages will trigger the build. The build, if it loads, right, is gonna, these are the versions of the current packages in the depot. Then it pulls in the source code, which is the resource I've named plan, and the CI, which is the build task. The script is in that resource, and then it runs the build script, which we can find in the Habitat plans repository under scripts build. And basically, it does this here. It's going to build the plan, and it's going to export it to Docker, and then it's going to output the things in a way that Concourse can continue processing the artifacts. And that's not so important in detail, but just to move on at a high level. So after it's built, we have the artifact, which is the .heart file and the Docker image. So I don't publish the heart file directly into the depot because I want to test it before publishing, right? Obviously. So I have this test step, which is going to base off of, it gets triggered when the edge image gets pushed, which is the image I just exported with the latest heart artifact embedded into it by the export Habitat function. And it's going to run my Delmo tool in the CI pipeline. But it's the same exact thing that I could. I can't show you the application. OK, I can't show you my terminal right now. The screen sharing is not working. But oh, I can show you in here. So basically, this under PostgreSQL, I have the tests folder. And this is basically has the Docker Compose file, which is going to pull edge. So this is basically getting into my local workflow. I can let the CI build the image and publish the edge image. And then in my local Docker Compose, I can play around with it and run Delmo to run tests against it. This is just dummy tests. I just put this up to test the generation of the pipeline. Basically, I'm just checking if I can write a value to PostgreSQL dummy test, like I said. So once that has been triggered, I get the option to do the PostgreSQL release. So in Concourse, you can see the solid line is a trigger and the dotted line is a non-trigger, but it will take the artifacts that were passed through the last job. So I have this artifact, I cache it in S3. So this is the artifact that I built. And in the release, when I click on it, it'll publish it to the depot. And it will also retag the edge image as latest. So that's basically making saying, OK, this is the latest supported version of this heart file and the Docker image. And that's basically it. That's the walkthrough of the one pipeline with the test. So my generation script, and incidentally, because Stark and Wayne Shield depends on Stark and Wayne PostgreSQL, publishing this artifact here into the public depot will trigger the build of Shield, and that will trigger the next pipeline, so to speak, of the next plan. Right. So my generation script is for the CI is in this repository. I don't know if you guys know Concourse. At Stark and Wayne, we use it all the time. This is the script. It's okay. Well, it's been growing now. It's about 200 lines. But basically, it's a for loop over all the packages. If it finds a plan, then okay, this is a folder that actually has a plan, so I'm going to add a job for it. Here's the for loop over the depths. So it sources the plan, it checks all the depths, and generates the resource for each dep, which is the input that you see. And then further down here, if there's a delmo.yaml, which is the test framework I use, then it'll add also a job to test it. And that's basically it. And I just wanted to show you guys the structure that I've put in there. Ian has helped me a little bit yesterday and today. We paired one open thing that we're working on right now is, so currently the PostgreSQL, for example, is being triggered by a whole bunch of different packages being rebuilt. I don't know, I'm just going to make something up here. I don't know if this is really the case, but I don't know, say OpenSSL package would depend on zlib package, and zlib would get rebuilt in core, then zlib would trig PostgreSQL, but OpenSSL would also get rebuilt. Again, I'm just making this up. And then a bit later, OpenSSL would have gotten rebuilt and also triggered PostgreSQL. Well, it's not a big deal because the heart artifact that is the output of this build is not instantly published. That requires a manual step. The trigger has to be clicked to release it, but still it's a redundant build. So what Ian and I are hacking out is a way to find out which of these deps are actually transitive and contained in another dep, so that only like the top level deps actually trigger the build to make that a bit more streamlined. So I have so this testing stuff is something that I want to do for Stark and Wayne. I don't know if that makes sense for the core packages. I have run a simpler version of this generation on the core plans repository. This is what it looks like, this gray line. I'll zoom in a bit. And these are every single core package is in here.
Zoom in, enhance.
Yeah.
Exactly. Magnify.
Yeah, so this is the maximum zoom actually now. So yeah, this is every single core package. So if you can imagine, if you just trigger one of these somewhere at the bottom of the dep tree, it'll create a massive chain reaction, and a couple hours later, maybe everything would be rebuilt. These are publishing directly. I haven't. This is an earlier version of the generation script where there's no like explicit publish step. It just publishes directly. So we obviously wouldn't want to run this in this state. But me and Ian are kind of figuring out if it makes sense to run some version of this on the core plans to simplify publishing the core plans when there's a pull request or something as a stopgap until the whole build service that a lot of the core team are working on is kind of finished. So this was like, I don't know, half a week of work, and it may be useful to the core team. It's definitely what we're going to use at Stark and Wayne moving forward.
It would be hugely valuable for us to have this functionality before we're the solution that we're building is ready. This looks great, Justin.
Thanks so much for doing all this work. It looks fantastic.
You're welcome. Thanks for letting me show it. That's basically what I have.
Yeah, that's a super good demo, dude.
Thanks for being willing to stay up and get on a call at 9 p.m., Justin.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No problem. I don't do it often, but when I do, I'm happy to be here.
Is there anything that you found through this that you needed from us? Or, I mean, you're on the core team too. I talk to you often, but is there anything that you need to help make this more real? You know?
No. This was pretty straightforward from my end. automating pipeline generation, it's something that Stark and Wayne does a lot. So this is something I can do in my sleep, basically. There was nothing missing, except for this one, like deduplicating the transitive depths that Ian and I are working on, and we'll probably get it done if we keep pairing, I don't know, sometime this week.
All right, cool.
I'm not going to
Okay.
be there till probably around.
All right, Ian, you want to take over?
Today. Are you?
I can, yeah. Give me 1 second to pull up the GitHub bit here. I have a lot of open windows. All right. Application window. How's that for an infinite loop?
It's perfect.
It's like going into the Matrix.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So this is the query. I'll go ahead and copy and paste that into Slack, theoretically, right here. All right, sweet. So ascending, yeah, awesome. So we'll start with 1733, I believe. This has been open for a while. Anybody have, so it looks like Jamie and Adam both touched it a couple weeks ago.
I
Ian,
gotta
do you
read.
mind bumping the text size on that just a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for the nearsighted among us. Ah, that's much better. Cool.
So give everybody a second to kind of read through the history on it.
Oh, I thought I submitted a pull request for this last week, or like partly for this. I may have forgotten to close the issue, or there may have been more to do on it.
I don't think that you touched this.
Oh, okay, never mind. I must be thinking of something else.
This is a request that in the studio, when you're running a build,
Got it.
you lock permissions to a particular directory, so like you can't write anywhere else.
Oh,
Basically.
yeah, I didn't touch this one. Never mind.
It was like tangentially related to, because you did something that was related to root, something that was related to the studio, but yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that we can probably at this point, I don't know if it's like, is this something we feel like we want to accept?
I'm not going to write this myself, like at all. But I understand the value if it showed up tomorrow. Sure, like it doesn't hurt anything. But I'm not going to write it because I don't find personal value in it. Like it's the same thing as writing unit tests in a compiled language. Yeah, you can, but you don't need to write them nearly as much as you do in a dynamic language because you don't have a compiler to check things for you in a dynamic language, right? So like I can see value here, but I don't think this is something that's going to hit our personal issue project tracker for a very long time, if ever.
Yeah, so we can always reevaluate, but let's go ahead and put it in help wanted, since if somebody's going to write it, we'd accept it, and we can just move on from there. If anybody has any thoughts on that or wants to leave a comment that says, hey, we see the value in this, but we don't think that this is probably going to get prioritized, that's totally fine to update that way.
Yes, anyone else has a strong opinion here, by the way. I'm not speaking for everybody. I'm just talking for myself right now. This is where I'm landing on it.
I agree. I was actually going to say I could even see closing it, but I like putting it in help one, just as anything, like just so it doesn't occur, it doesn't ping us again next week. But yeah, like I agree with Jamie. I mean, this definitely has value, but I just don't think the passion or the need lies on is in this group. But if somebody else had that and was willing to submit it, then awesome.
Well, I also think that like really the outcome can be achieved without writing code, right? Like the outcome can be
right.
Like
Yeah, like this isn't a blocker. I don't see this as a blocker to anybody getting things done.
I think that the outcome can be achieved by human process, but and I feel like most of the time when we try to write tools to solve human problems, it just creates more problems. So I'm not opposed to it, but yeah, I think I'm in the same boat.
And as soon as it bites me, then I'm gonna rage write it. So
Right.
that's a thing that's eventually gonna happen. I'm gonna come back to this video and be like, oh, I can't believe I said that.
Cool. Well, let's go ahead and move on to 2002. Which is the one that Justin opened 8 days ago.
Yeah, so I have context on this because I was chatting with Justin late at night, early his morning. Basically, oh, you want to go back to that? Am I muted? No, I'm not. All right. So this would be taking a value that you are binding to and re-exporting it as one of your exports. And there was a scenario that Justin had that was spot on for this. It would mean that we have to slightly change the syntax of what it looks like to define an export. So you'll notice that he has bind.database.user. We would have to swap the other to cfg.whatever. I think this is a help wanted thing, and I think Justin's going to hit it, is why he wrote this.
I actually already have a spike on this, but all the feature work I've been doing is kind of on hold because of the stuff that I showed you.
Gotcha.
So when I get back to doing features, this will be pretty easy for me.
Yeah. I didn't know you were still there. Sorry, man. I wouldn't have talked for you.
No, it's fine.
All right, cool. Well, that was easy. It's always nice when the person who opens the issue is on the call. Sweet. So let's go ahead and move on to 1993, which I guess is the one that the other one kind of references back to this. Is that right, Justin?
Yeah, so I was just thinking about different scenarios related to the Shield work in which we would bind like some app to a database, and the database might be clustered, so you might have a proxy in front of the cluster to always point to the leader, or you would want some way to reference the leader from the application. But then what if you're not in leader topology? These kind of things. So I realized that it's not as straightforward as you might think when you start thinking about this thing. So this ticket is just basically dumping my thoughts on that. And then Jamie just mentioned the late night discussion that we had to pick out individual issues out of this brain dump. And one of them I've already implemented, and the others are kind of still lying there waiting.
Awesome. So what we can probably do, since you opened issues for each of these, we can just leave this. We don't need to assign it a milestone right now, and we'll track the separate issues, and we can leave this open as you're kind of working on it, so that we know, so that we don't just lose it or have it not show up in our issue tracker. Does everybody feel okay about that? Not assigning it a milestone?
Fine by me.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right.
There was 3 things from this, right, Justin? One of them's done. one of them is a given, and we should do it ourselves, like someone on the core team needs to do it, which is propagating or gossiping the topology something's in, making it available
and
to our
there's a bug
template.
related to that as well that I opened, in that services in the same service group shouldn't start if they're configured in different topologies. And that's actually something that we need to decide on, what kind of default behavior we want. I think you'll probably hit that ticket pretty soon.
Cool. All right, great. We can go ahead and move past that to 1983. Oh, so this works out that you were able to make the call tonight.
Yeah, all my tickets are coming up from 2 weeks ago when I opened them or something. Yeah, so post run hook, that's pretty straightforward. And I think Jamie and I also in that same discussion agreed that we're basically going to implement it as this, unless there are other comments, we'll do it the way it says, just really straightforward.
Yeah, no, I feel like we had one that came up a while back that was similar, but I'm totally, I think that this makes perfect sense. I feel like we've had conversations about this actually during triage in the past as well.
Though I might notice that for the work that I'm doing now with Shield, I've actually decided to go with a different pattern, and that is that I will be initializing the database in the application side and not on the database side, which is also something I've discussed with a lot of the team members, and kind of thought I'd try out that pattern because I haven't really used it before.
Yeah, totally. Yep, that's a pattern that I've used with my multi-service systems as well. All right, cool. Let me refresh that real quick. There we go.
And that thought leads straight to this here, because if I'm initializing the database in the application, then we're exposing super user credentials as bindings, which means, well, yeah, the HTTP gateway exposes all of the configuration, etc., and especially the bindings. So yeah, this is going to be a requirement for any serious use.
Yep.
Yeah, this should be accepted as our work. I don't know when we'll do this though.
That wouldn't be, there's no like, we wouldn't consider that a major change, right?
It is not a major change. It is a feature or an enhancement. It is definitely something that we need to provide. And I guarantee you somebody's gonna, within a couple months, be demanding it.
Yep. That's
rightfully so.
Okay, so we'll move on to 2021.
I think what Mike is saying here is when he says query, I assume he means like hab package config.
Yep. Yeah, he was talking about this at KubeCon last week.
Yeah, and in which case we should extend package config to also show that, I think, or add package binds or something like that. Makes perfect sense.
Is that something that we'll get prioritization on, or we want to put it under help wanted? I
am pretty sure this is a help wanted. It's a pretty easy thing to add for somebody. And it's not something that I believe we'll end up prioritizing anytime soon.
Awesome. Let's move on to 2026. Yeah.
I'm literally the worst when it comes to your corporate SSL firewall, like anything to do with firewalls, proxies. I don't work in a corporation, and I'm terrible.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea though.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. I'm just the worst because
I would assume that like the more enterprise you are, the more likely you're going to be to run into this as well.
Yep. Yeah, it's the type of thing that like you can go a whole career without ever like bumping into these things and wonder like what's what the hell, and then like when you are in that environment, it's like it's a showstopper.
Yeah, I'm inclined to say that this is something that at some point we should tackle.
I agree. And it's pretty. I think it would be pretty straightforward.
Sweet. Great. Let's move on to 2031. Salim, do you want to comment on this issue?
Yeah, this is something I'm working on right now, actually. So this is in progress.
Oh, gotcha. This is a ticket. I just realized. Oh, that's right. Because I think my query is actually wrong on this. 1 second. This should be no milestone, no
Maybe I didn't.
process. Doink. There we go.
Still a couple showing up, actually. So maybe I should put them out on. Ignore those 4.
Yeah, no, wait a minute, what's going on with these? Yeah, so are these not on a, no, these haven't been added to a project yet.
I didn't do a good job of opening them.
Okay, cool. So these are all probably just gonna end up on our project board?
Yeah.
Sweet, well then we are caught up for the week. So let's spend, why don't we kind of spend a couple minutes, if everybody who's got in-flight work, I don't know when the last time we actually kind of did a community stand-up was, but I feel like it's probably been a few weeks. So if we want to just kind of talk about where we're at on things that are, oops, wrong board, where things are happening right now and what you're working on, that would be awesome. We don't necessarily need to go through like all of the tickets on the board, but if you have in-flight work that you're tracking, if you want to give like a high level on that, that would be great. And whoever wants to start can go first.
I can go ahead and start. The thing I'm working on right now is refactoring how Habitat persists channels. Right now it stores information about channels in memory of the machine that's running Habitat, which is less than ideal for a number of reasons, but was done for good reasons at the time, and now I'm refactoring it to use Postgres.
Awesome.
Yeah, and my work basically coincides right along with Mal's, which is essentially the same thing, but for packages as well, which is now stored in Redis. So getting that over to Postgres. So once Nell and I are finished, we'll have the entire depot feeding off of Postgres. Then we can actually go into the data migration and then actually roll out all this work that we've kind of have been piling up over the last several months.
The bit that I'm working on is pushing for a release on Thursday, finalizing the multi-tenant supervisor, writing the docs for what it is to interact with the supervisor now to start, stop, enable, disable packages. Services, and writing those commands as well. So the gist is we have everything done now, and we had enough to demo it, and now we need to make it real so everyone can use it. And what we're going to try to do is wrap that up and release it on Thursday, which is AKA the director replacement. So
Incredibly exciting, that actually.
I'm working on the event service, getting it so that whenever subscribers connect, they sort of get a snapshot of the most recent messages or events that have been published, so that they aren't, waiting for whenever the next event comes in, they will have an idea of what's going on.
Cool.
yeah, and context for anyone that doesn't know what the event server is, it's how we are going to be aggregating or sending data to people who want to subscribe to things that happen in the Habitat ring. So instead of having you ask every single server about its status through the HTTP gateway, you could write a client to this event server and populate something. We will be tying it into Automate.
Super dope.
Also,
Cool.
I mentioned this a little bit before, but I'm working on the builder service, and that's the service that's going to be essentially responsible for when you upload a package to the depot, finding all the reverse dependencies, and then triggering off builds of those packages, and then kind of managing the status of whatever the build status is for those packages as well. So that's coming along. There's a card that is we just looked at that I'm planning on getting done, and then if all goes well this week, acceptance will be updated with the builder scheduler service, and we'll start having some preliminary package builds and kick the tires a little bit. So making progress.
Sweet. Justin, did you want to talk briefly about what I mean, aside from what you've already demoed, what you've got in the works?
No, that basically covers it. I'm, importing our Shield Bosch release to Habitat-based system and trying to make it work, and tackling all the features that fall out of that scenario, basically.
Awesome. Yeah, for myself, the work that I have in flight right now is primarily to get over this post-conference flu, or whatever the hell it is, that I always seem to get every time I'm around 1,500 people in a single building. So I'm helping, like Justin said earlier, I've kind of been helping him with the work that he's doing around having a stopgap build CI for packages that will cut down on the number of unmerged package PRs, which is awesome. I've got a few things happening community-wise that might be worth talking about, but maybe not until next week. Primarily, though, the only other thing that I've got as far as what we have going on here, I had conversations with Fletcher and Tasha last week around doing some investigative work on how much effort will be involved in rebuilding our prod environment. So hopefully I'll have some information on what how painful that might be in a couple of days. But those are the only few things that I have right now that are kind of directly in flight and worth talking about. I'll have more next week. So Sweet. So I don't think we have any open PRs that have not been looked at. I think that probably what we're going to end up doing going forward is if we end up having more days, more triages like this, where we have time to, at the end of our scheduled meeting, we could probably start looking through some of the package PRs that are open or issues on the other repos that we've got. But we'll kind of see how it goes. It's nice to be pretty caught up on things. So for today, I'm going to give everybody 15 minutes back. And then next week, we'll see if there's other issues worth triaging in any of our other repos. So cool. So thanks, everybody. I'm going to stop screen sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
Thanks for
cool.
hosting, man.
Yeah. So like,
It's so much easier when you do it.
Oh, I didn't do it. You mean starting the hangout, or do you mean talking through the issues?
Facilitating it.
Got it. Yeah. Cool.
I hate that part. All right, guys.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. See ya.
Good night. Bye.